because I think that's the other thing about people pleasing is that you're so rarely actually giving people what they need or want. It's more about what you think they need. And so putting so much time and energy into that, is that really what I should be doing?
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. Whether you're just starting your career or you're an executive, one thing that is critical to your success is consistently advocating for yourself. My next guest, Meghan Marvin, Vice President of Global Service Delivery for Endeavor, feels strongly that we should all be advocating for ourselves, regardless of our level. Meghan, who is a client that I've had the honor of supporting, shares some great wisdom as she reflects on her career journey. Listen in as we talk about why you should have compensation conversations early in your career. This is one of my favorites, how she stopped being a people pleaser. Why she feels that you should always advocate for yourself, even when you're at the executive level. How your voice will help bring awareness and change at work. And why she decided to start a women in IT group at work. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, y'all are in for a treat. Let's do this. All right, Meghan, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get into your journey and how you got to where you are now, take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
I think the best thing about sports is that it pulls so many people together in a way that it gives them that common thing to cheer on, to lament about. I am very familiar with the lamentations, given that I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but we're doing okay right now, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, I think it's just sort of that group camaraderie that you can get that really speaks to me.
Phillies fan, or Philadelphia Eagles fan, excuse me. And did you play sports growing up?
In a way, if you count ballet as a sport, which I know a lot of people don't, and I probably wouldn't have. But yeah, I was a ballet dancer for a really long time, from the age of 3 until I graduated high school. And then I started running.
Wow. You're a ballerina. I don't think I know anyone who kept it up after 5 years old.
Oh, see, it's all about the imagination. I liked pretending, to be something else, and you get to dress in the costumes and become the thing when you have a recital or, just when you're in a class and dedicating time to that.
And you went right into running, and then you have 5 marathons under your belt?
I have 5 marathons under my belt. My 6th is in a little less than 6 weeks, New York City Marathon for the first time.
Wow.
I'm very pumped. Yeah, I went into running and I ran casually just to stay in shape and, keep my mind right for a couple of years until I was at work and a guy that I worked with had run the Philadelphia Marathon and he came in with the medal and I was like, hold on a second. Everyone gets a medal? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's it. Sign me up. And I think within 18 months or something, I had run my first marathon.
Oh, so you were enticed by the medal that he got.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's all about, to the point where now certain races, because I've done at least 15 half marathons, there's I seriously have to ask myself, if I don't get a medal at the end of a race, I'm like, do I want to sign up for this?
What about a certificate? Is that okay?
No, because you can't wear a certificate. I suppose you could.
You could if you got creative.
Exactly. But I can wear my medal, and I am really that obnoxious person too, where I will wear it around for the day afterwards. Even this year, I got first in my age group in a very, very small half marathon, which was really exciting for me. I've never placed or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I got 2 medals.
Ooh.
So I wore both of them together so that they would clang obnoxiously.
Oh my God. Now, when you say you wore them, like, was
Mhm.
this at home or did you like wear it to the grocery store to go get
I
coffee?
I wore them at home, but I will often wear them like to work the next day, only for 20 minutes or so in the beginning, because then you're very aware of this thing hanging around your neck. But then I hang it on my desk and force anyone who comes by to talk to me about it.
That's perfect. I love it. Tell everybody what you do and who you do it for.
I am the VP of Global Service Delivery at a company called Endeavor. So, what that means is that I work with our IT team and within our IT team to deliver IT services. So, I oversee our US help desk and our IT events. And then I plug into all of our teams. We have a really deep bench of IT teams, specialists, and generalists at Endeavor to deliver any projects or special work that we might be doing.
So you are really a woman in tech.
Yeah.
Like big, like I mean, that's huge. So, okay, tell everybody who doesn't know, explain Endeavor and then the background of 160 over 90. Tell everybody like the connection there.
Endeavor is a parent company. I work for the corporate team, which means that we work across all of the different business units that fall under Endeavor, which include groups such as WME Agency, IMG Models, IMG Academy, and 160 over 90, as well as UFC and PBR. I like to call them out too. So 160 over 90 was originally primarily a marketing and branding firm that was headquartered in Philadelphia, and they had offices in Florida as well as California. Several years back now at this point, I think probably around 6 years, they were acquired by Endeavor. And so while I was at 160 over 90, I started as their office manager. I worked up to director of operations, where I was overseeing their facilities and their IT. And then when Endeavor acquired the company, I got to work really closely with the Endeavor IT team to go through the IT integration. So, an IT integration, for anyone who's not familiar, is basically taking all of the systems and access. Email is one of the biggest ones that people think about, but servers and any other platform that they're using and pulling it into the overarching infrastructure so that the wider team can manage their emails, can manage their applications, can manage their devices, all of that stuff. And I really enjoyed it. It was something that I really embraced. It was a new challenge. I had been at 160 for a few years at that point. So I kind of just leaned into it. And then there was this role available that took me from Philadelphia to New York. And so now I've been at Endeavor it's just over 4 years. I think it's like 4 years and 23 days or something.
You're not counting or anything.
I saw my anniversary recently on our HR system.
Okay, so 160 over 90 definitely is in the sports industry. Endeavor, because if I understand it, there's all these companies that they're buying
Yeah.
that are in the sports industry. Therefore, Endeavor is also in the sports industry. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So 160 or 90 now they are much, much bigger than they were. They're really kind of global now within the Endeavor umbrella. And so Endeavor has a lot of activity and clients and events and all sorts of different things that cross over into the sports arena.
Okay, that's a big jump. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you were director of operations at 160 over 90, and then you make this move to Endeavor, your parent company, and you help with the integration, which is a big deal. And then you become a vice president. So talk us through that. Did you have to push for that title, or was that the position that became available? Were you nervous becoming a vice president?
Oh yeah, hugely. So that was the title that became available. And I came in and I was hugely nervous. And I think one of the things that was really helpful was the folks at Endeavor who are still in leadership here really kind of gave me an opportunity to grow into it. So very transparently, entered, and we talked about how I wasn't quite at the level that I wanted to be at in terms of my experience, but that they were bringing me in under a VP title because it allowed me to grow into that space. And it also set me up for success in terms of being able to make relationships with people that I might not be able to get on their calendars because I didn't have a VP title, right? So they
Wow.
really like coached me and gave me an opportunity, I think, to kind of test myself and to really challenge myself because I'm really big on the challenge, obviously, 5 marathons still going. And so I felt like I had a lot of guidance without necessarily micromanagement. And now to look back over the 4 years that I've been in Endeavor and how far I've come is always really exciting for me to see.
Give us a sneak behind the curtain, if you don't mind. You can tell me to
Mhm.
mind my own business, but what did that look like, right? So you have this company who's telling you you can grow into this role. So
Mhm.
if you don't feel, did you not feel like you were at vice president level yet, or did they not feel like you were?
I think probably I didn't feel like I was, and essentially to grow into what I am now, because now I oversee how many people do I have on my staff now? It's probably like 45, 50 people are reporting
Mhm.
into me. So at the time when I was brought in, there was no one reporting to me. So essentially, I was brought in and I was given time to learn the company and to learn the business and to learn all the players so that it wasn't just like, we're bringing this person in, you all report to her, good luck, and we'll talk to you later, which was interesting. I'll say there was some bumpiness for sure. Anytime, obviously, when being brought in to focus on service delivery, but not having a team of my own meant really connecting with the people who led the teams that were providing these services. So I had to really quickly build those relationships. And luckily, I knew some of these folks from when I was on the other side of the fence. But essentially, I got to come in, I got to know the business really well. And I do come from more of an operations background as opposed to a traditional computer science IT background. And even before that, I went to art school. So, very sort of a different
Mhm.
approach. But I am very much about the people first. So I approached everything that way, where it was getting to know the people, it was getting to know what challenges do they have both within the tech team and then also for our users. And I kind of approached it that way. And then it wasn't until I was probably a year and a half into the role that we actually shifted teams under me so that I
Mhm.
became the head of the US help desk and our IT events I think shifted either at that point or shortly thereafter.
Okay, now I might stumble through this here and make sure I get the jargon. I might not get the jargon right, so feel free to correct me.
Okay.
But so you come in, you don't have a service team,
Hmm.
but you are VP of Global Service Delivery at
Hmm.
the time. And so really you're just working with your were you working with your counterparts at this point who had service teams?
Yeah, so essentially, I was working with our regional leads who now report to me, but at that time, they didn't. I was sort of on an island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just worked really closely with them. And one of the things that I sort of led with was what is currently causing their team stress and what's currently causing their team's issues. And I knew coming in, we needed a new ticketing platform, so a new help desk platform. So I really kind of led that project along with our very highly technical, very skilled team. But in terms of keeping everybody on the same page and drafting a lot of what we would need to be successful, that was sort of where I leaned in and then looked for feedback. Does this work for your teams? Do you think this is going to be helpful? Is this something that we should set up, that we should dedicate time to? And so we were like that for probably 18 months, maybe a little more, before the formal shift was made.
Got it. Okay. So the way you navigated that sort of, because I'm sure some people were like, what is she doing? Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like why is she here? Like, I don't get her role because was it a new role within the company as well?
It was, yeah. And there were definitely moments of that, like where I found myself in a room with mostly men a lot of the times, where like you can tell there's that one guy in the room just like dying to roll his eyes and be like, oh, what does she know? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad to say that at this point now, I feel like a lot of those people that felt that way don't feel that way anymore. Because I
Yeah.
was or I've been who I am for the past 4 years. And so they've gotten to know me. And I like to think now that they see what my unique approach and contribution is.
Wow. That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, it was very stressful.
Yeah.
For a good part of that time, it was really, really stressful because there's a lot of navigating like people's feelings, and I never want to step on someone's toes. So it was definitely kind of a tough ramp up.
Okay, so if someone's listening, they're like, yeah, I'm in that situation right now. Or, that's the job I'm taking, maybe different title, but like I'm taking a job where it's almost like you're like this internal consultant and like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have
Mhm.
people reporting to you, but you have to talk to leaders of teams and get them to align with you. Like, what would you say I don't know, your top three like tips would be for them if they were to call you for an informational interview?
I would say be yourself. That's a really
Mhm.
big thing. Like I said, I'm really people first. So I am all about the soft skills. That's the thing. And I feel like a lot of times people who are not very good at soft skills actually really, really appreciate when they encounter someone who is. So be yourself, be a sponge. That's just, I think, in general, good advice. Doesn't matter what level you're at, if you're a sponge and you can kind of soak up what you need to, because obviously you can't soak up everything. You'll be too overwhelmed there. And then third, I would say be brave. For me, sometimes that comes in terms of raising a hand and saying, I don't understand this, or I need more information about this, or how does this tie into the bigger picture? Because I think there is a lot of fear in the corporate world, especially about asking questions because people
Mhm.
don't know. It's a funny thing where people think if I ask this question, it's going to seem like I don't know what I'm talking about or I don't know what it is. But like not knowing is not a problem. It's if you don't try to correct that, that it
Mhm.
becomes a problem.
Okay, I love that. So be yourself, be a sponge, be brave.
Be brave. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And asking the questions, you're right. I know that I used to be, even like when I was senior in my career, I'm like, oh, some questions you just hold back on asking. And then I don't know about you or anyone who's listening, then I'd be filled with regret because I didn't ask the
Mhm.
question. So now I'm mad at myself. And I also don't have what I need to do my job or do it
Yeah.
well. Or I think I don't. Like I know there's a piece missing and it's like, oh, now I have to go ask this person, but we just had a meeting. So I'm wasting their time. And then
Yeah.
you just spiral, right? Like we've
Yeah.
all been there, which is the worst feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I love the three tips that you gave. I just did an episode on people pleasing. First of all, let me ask you, do you consider yourself a people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser?
Definitely, I would say a recovering people pleaser. You and I have been working together for, Jahaan has been coaching me for anybody who doesn't know. Yeah, so definitely a recovering people pleaser, which because a big part of what pushed me to kind of undo a lot of that is because I felt like I was trying so hard to please everyone except myself, or I ended up so overwhelmed and so stressed out. And the people, or like even the person that's most important to me, so my husband, my partner at home, was not pleased because he got so
Mm-hmm,
little of me, so little of my attention,
mm-hmm,
so little of my energy. And so it's something where I sort of had to take a step back and say, is this really working? Like, am I really being the best employee, the best partner, the best person, the best leader, the best manager, whatever it is that I can be when I'm so overwhelmed with trying to give everybody else what I think they need? Because I think that's the other thing about people pleasing is that you're so rarely actually giving people what they need or want. It's more about what you think they need. And so putting so much time
mm-hmm.
and energy into that, is that really what I should be doing?
Yes, you are giving. Gosh, I wish we talked yesterday before I recorded my episode, but you're right. A lot of times you think you know what they need,
Hmm.
and you're mostly wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like if you haven't talked to them and you haven't asked the question, you probably don't know. Did people pleasing creep up when you first started out as a VP?
No, I've been a people pleaser, or I had been a people pleaser my whole life. I would say I come from a really big family, and obviously it's really chaotic. And so you kind of a lot of times do what you can to get attention or, whatever it might be. And so I'm also the only girl out of six children, so I have five brothers. So there was also this idea of like what a little girl was supposed to be, right? Which I
Sure.
think often we're put in that position of being people pleasers. So
Mhm.
I would say it's been a lifelong endeavor. It definitely, I think, became more focused as I became a VP. So as like my career grew, and I felt like it was more about work, and especially because I do IT is at the end of the day a service delivery function. This is something I say to my team all the time. So we are trying to fulfill what people need, what they want, and just support them as best we can. And so sometimes I think that can get a little bit mixed up with that people pleaser mindset.
Yeah, I had a friend who he runs his own dentist practice.
Mhm.
And so I put a poll on Instagram about people pleasing. And even though he's not a woman in sports, he always responds to my posts, which is fine, my polls. So I appreciate the support. It's fine.
Yeah.
And and I was like, you're not really, you think you're a people pleaser? And he's like, I'm in customer service, at the end of the day. And I was like, you're not putting their feelings or their, emotions over your own. Like you're trying to make sure they have the best possible experience, but is that at the expense of your own emotions? I mean, sometimes, but right, like, or your own boundaries. Are you crossing boundaries? Like there is that gray line when it comes to people pleasing and service delivery, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance to walk, for sure. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about being a vice president for 4 years and 23 days. Sometimes I think people think, oh, I'm an executive. I don't need to advocate for myself. I got to the top, so to speak, right? Maybe some people want to go to C-level, but ultimately you got to the top. So do you feel like you're still advocating for yourself at the executive level?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you should always be advocating for yourself because there's still things that I want to learn. So that's been a big thing where like I will reach out to the SVP level and the folks above me and ask about like, can we talk more about this? Or can you teach me how to do this thing? I think the thing that becomes available to you once you get into a VP or a director level or whatever that equivalent is at different organizations is that you're now also in a position to advocate for others, which hopefully you're in that position your whole career. But now I definitely find that I can see or participate in increasing the path for someone else, which is something I really love. So like when it comes to people leadership, the thing I explain to potential or new people leaders on my team is like when you become, and I like leader better than manager because it's really hard to manage people. But when you become a people leader, you are dealing with people, which means you're dealing with their emotions. You're dealing with things that are going on outside of work, with things that are going on inside of work. And so for me, I've always been really passionate about creating that space where people can succeed in whatever success means to them and do it in a way where they are healthy and hopefully happy, which is funny for like a people pleaser who bent over backwards. But I think it's that I'm looking out for those potential people pleasers and trying to like give them permission to create space for themselves. So that's kind of the way that I see it. But in general, I think it's really important to keep advocating for yourself because there's always going to be something, there's always going to be some project, or there's going to be like salary discussions are never ending and they never should be. And we should never be afraid to have them because very few of us are in it for the love of the game. Most of us are here to get paid. So we should be approaching that with, I feel, a really open and honest attitude with the people that we consult with that. And ideally, people find as I currently have, I have a manager who is really, really supportive and I can have these conversations with him. Ideally, that's the scenario that people find themselves in where they can have these open conversations and comp is not a taboo topic for them to bring up.
Some of the toughest conversations we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. We can convince ourselves to believe stories that we don't even know are true. What's crazy is we allow that story to take a toll on our confidence. Have you been there before? I know that I have. We get in our heads. We beat ourselves up. Here's some tough love. Nobody's got time for that. We are high achieving women who have big career goals. We don't have time to get in our own way. And I am here to support you with my new one-on-one coaching program, Step into Your Power and Own Your Career. My clients have told me that when we work together, I've helped them get out of their own way, regain their confidence, learn how to manage their emotion and mindset. They've told me that they've been able to get their voice back and use it with confidence. The most important thing, they've told me that we've identified the obstacle that was getting in their way. If you want to learn more about this program, scroll down in the show notes, click on the link that says Step into Your Power and Own Your Career. You can set up time to chat with me and we can figure out if this is the right program for what you need. All right, let's get back to the episode. Have you been in a different company, not under Endeavor or Endeavor itself, that you couldn't have those conversations with a manager?
Definitely. I've definitely been in places in my career where it was sort of like, you get paid what you get paid, and we're not talking about this otherwise. it can feel really defeating because you feel a little bit stuck. Like you didn't get to participate in this. Conversations were had. I didn't get to participate in the conversations. And it was basically just like, this is what we're paying you. And it really makes you feel like you don't have any recourse. And I would say, even in those instances, this is one of those like looking back things. Now,
Mhm.
the me now would tell the me then, like, no, have the conversation. Go tell somebody. It's like, would I actually have done it with my experience and my knowledge back then? I don't know. Even if future me gave advice to past me, I don't know that I would do it. But I do feel like it's something that the earlier you start it in your career, the more comfortable you're going to be. I actually gave this advice to someone recently. It never has to be a hostile conversation. You never have to be threatening to leave. It can really just be, I'd like to talk about my compensation
Mhm.
and better understand what's my trajectory in terms of like, am I making what you think I should be making? If I feel like I should be making more, bringing the information about why that is. So the background, what I'm seeing in the marketplace, also focusing on the value that I uniquely bring that might not be able to be captured just based on a title or a salary range.
I mean, what did you do, I guess, back then when that happened? You kind of felt defeated. You had no real say in your value and what that looked like in your compensation. So sometimes it's scary for people to say like that to happen and be angry and then be like, wait, I need a job. I have
Yeah.
benefits. I have bills to pay. I have student loans, right? Like I fell into that trap. So it's just like, what did you do back then? Or what advice would you give to people?
Back then, I think I did push it a little bit. I will say now that I'm remembering, I did push it a little bit where I kind of like, I did bring it up of like, well, what about that? Like, I did try to present sort of solutions in a way where I went and I tried to suggest different things or ask about other potential opportunities within the organization that might help with my compensation. Ultimately, I ended up leaving that job because I felt like I not only wasn't making as much as I wanted to and as much as I thought I deserved, but there wasn't much growth in
Mm.
it. And so, like, I didn't see the value in hanging around and not getting paid what I wanted if I also couldn't see there's like a finish line
Mm.
somewhere up ahead that says, yes, like that's going to get me to the next thing.
So it sounds like things that you valued were, yes, compensation, being compensated your value, also growth. And
Hmm.
so that company couldn't check either of those boxes.
Yeah. And I will say I did
Hmm.
learn a lot in that because I was working in more of an operations kind of role. And so
Hmm.
I was working across all of the departments. And so I feel like I learned a lot of valuable lessons in terms of sort of a service delivery, obviously not within IT, slightly different, but getting to understand that everybody has an opinion and they are more likely than not going to share it, especially when you are positioned as that person that they can share it with. And that was really valuable. So, like, I still look back on it, I still find value in it, but ultimately, the best thing that I did was to leave.
I think it's worth pointing out to everybody that this was outside of the sports industry, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This happens everywhere, just so we all,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure we all know, but sometimes it's so easy to get caught in that bubble and like you surround yourself with other people in sports and you like sometimes you forget and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go somewhere else and make a ton of money. So
Yeah.
you're still gonna have to learn how to really advocate for yourself and fight for what you want. And I
Hmm.
love what you said about having those conversations as early in your career as you can because it gets easier over time.
Absolutely.
How are you balancing your time? It's really difficult because I know that you're ambitious. I know that
Hmm.
a lot of the women listening are ambitious. How do you balance it all?
I would say I balance it in, and I've gotten a lot better at this recently, thanks to the work that you and I have been doing together, but also the support that I've had, not just from my partner, but also my friends. So, one of the things that I find really valuable is the community that I've sort of built, not just at work, but outside of work. So, at work, I started a Women in IT group because,
Mhm.
as I mentioned, we have these really diverse teams within IT. And we would have women that sort of spanned all of these groups that had never had a chance to talk to each other. But if we found ourselves in a room, we would talk about some of our frustrations. And it became really obvious that we were going through a lot of the same things, or we had a lot of the same questions and the same passions. So I started this group to pull everyone together. And it's become something where we occasionally have like external speakers come in and talk to us. But I think it's also just become a safe space space for all of us to be together, which is really valuable. So having that safe space with women across different levels, different teams within the organization is really nice. I also have really, really incredible close friends that I value above anything else that are there for me. Like one of my friends actually said to me that she was proud of me for taking a day off last week when I really needed one kind of unexpectedly. And I was offline. I signed offline. And my friend said she's so proud of me because she feels like, a year ago, 2 years ago, that's not something I would have done.
Yeah, that's it. That's huge. That's a
Yeah.
huge win right there.
My mantra lately has been the most important thing is me. And I don't mean that in, a narcissistic or like self-centered kind of way, but like at the end of the day, the most important thing is my health. That's something I can't get back, and my time and spending that time really wisely. So recently, I've really been balancing it where I am super, super focused during the day, as much as I can be. I still have those days where I have 6 hours of meetings, but that's something that I've started protecting my calendar a lot to say, like, if this is not critical, it's not going on today, or it's not even going on this week. It's going on during a day when I actually have time and I'm not already wall to wall, or moving other things. If this is really critical, okay, we're going to have to bump this other thing to another day so that I have time to get lunch and go to the bathroom and breathe. And I started trying to meditate. I'm a very fidgety person. So there's no video with this, but I'm like, Jahaan can see, I'm just like rocking the chair back and forth.
Yes, I think I'm used to it because I didn't even notice.
Yeah. So I tend to be a really fidgety person. So I've been trying to meditate lately. And for my fellow fidgeters out there, what I would say is really helpful is Tai Chi is amazing. So like it allows you to move, but you are getting in a meditative headspace. So for anybody who's like, oh, I've tried to meditate and I can't sit for the 5 minutes, which was my experience last night, Tai Chi is where it's at.
Oh, say more about this.
Oh my gosh. So it's so great. So there is this Tai Chi video on YouTube that I think it's actually like Tai Chi for seniors and beginners, but there's a ton of
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
that you can do. And it really is just like, number one, it is a pretty good workout. Like I've been done the next day. I'm like, oh man, my arms are, they're sore. And keep in mind, like I ran 21 miles this weekend. So
What? Wait, like Tai Chi creates
yeah.
soreness?
Yes, because
I
you keep
thought it
like
was
your
like
muscles are
moving
engaged.
your arms and
Yeah,
like
it is. But like
throwing a
imagine
ball.
doing that and like you're staying in rhythm with yourself. It's really, really good. And it makes me feel so calm and so good and just like so grateful for the opportunity to move.
But would you be willing to share that link so we can put it in the show notes?
I can. Yeah, I'm a big fan. So I think really what it boils down to is that I'm still very ambitious at work and I want to keep growing and keep climbing, but I'm also being ambitious with my personal life. So I am finding ways to make the most out of the time that I have that is all mine, and not in a way that is like toxic productivity, because I will definitely fall into that trap occasionally, but in ways that I feel like it's really beneficial to me. So recently I joined a running club that is it's more of a socializing club first, and they just happen to run while they socialize.
That sounds like a fun club.
It's awesome. For anybody in New York, it's the Not So Serious Running Group. Highly recommend it. They're the nicest people in the world. That has been like, it just completely livens up my weekends where running, like I love to run, but when you're deep into marathon training, you can get into a headspace where it's just really exhausting to like lace up your shoes and you have to go and listen to the same playlist or something that you're just not in the mood for it and you would much rather brunch with friends, right? So this allows me sort of to do that, but I still get my long runs in at the same time. And then I end and I feel really great and we all get smoothies and we hang out in Central Park.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brunches are definitely different from mine, but yes, that's you're like, and then we get smoothies, and I was like, well, what kind of smoothies?
Yeah.
Like, I'm still amazed by the Tai Chi. So I've
Yeah.
never heard anybody, and this is no knock on Tai Chi. This is my limited knowledge of it. Whenever I see someone in the park, they're always older, than me.
Hmm.
And so it's usually an older group. I'm talking like 60s, 70s. I'm making some assumptions, but I'm so excited about this. And I don't know if anyone else tries it, let me know. I think I'm going to try it for
Yeah,
sure.
I highly recommend. I'll send it to you because I like it. It's really like simple. I think that's why I like the way this guy does it so much. It's really simple.
Mhm.
It's really straightforward the way he presents it. And it feels kind of cool. You kind of feel like you're, a little like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's sort of, at least that's who I am in my meditative headspace.
Hey, whatever you want, right? Like
Yeah,
it's your mind. It is
exactly.
fine. As long as you're not breaking the law. It's your
Yeah.
mind.
Hmm.
So I love this women in IT group.
Hmm.
And I imagine that if you're working in a male dominated industry, which you are,
Hmm.
that it helps also deal with that. So it doesn't sound like that's not the reason you created the group, but it's a benefit of having the group is being able to learn how to navigate that portion of your career too. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been a pretty big part of it is that a lot of those conversations that we would have where we were commiserating over the same thing, a lot of it was about being talked down to or mansplained to in a way that you wouldn't see necessarily a male colleague do to another male colleague, which I think a lot of women across a lot of different industries and groups have experienced. And so being able to talk about it in a safe space and get some advice or provide some advice allowed us to sort of or allowed me at least, not to speak for the rest of the group, but allowed me to kind of remember that this isn't something that I'm inventing, because I think so often that is unfortunately a place that women are put in where we're told, like, no, you're just being overly sensitive. You're just being hyper aware of this because of X, Y, or Z. And one of the things that it actually came through about a conversation about sports with my team that I pointed out is it that women are being overly sensitive and hyper aware, or is it that everywhere else is so steeped in toxic masculinity that when for someone to point it out shocks everybody?
It's almost like they can't really get past it. It's like, well, this is the
Mhm.
norm and it's the norm for so long. Like I don't compute, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
I don't see what you see. Like, what are you even talking about? Right? Like
Yes.
this is how the world should be.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of people that think that that's just the way that it works. It's okay for this person to be a jerk because they're getting good results out of their team, or, they're delivering this project or whatever it is. And I always counter that with like, but are they getting the best results? And are they creating the best environment that it could be? Because
Mm.
if you have people that are in a space where they feel like they are safe, they're more likely to be productive and they're more likely to enjoy their time there. So they're probably going to stay longer. And those things, I think, really outweigh any sort of perceived increase in productivity if someone is more difficult or less respectful of their
Mm.
colleagues.
Like what you say isn't like yeah, you're right, like this happens a lot, but it's also so easy to think sometimes like, oh, the world is changing, so you don't like we're not facing that as much.
Hmm.
But I don't feel like that is the case because I feel like a lot of groups, and I don't want to single out men, but I will feel like the rules don't apply.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear if I'm really listening to other people when they're talking about some of their struggles is just that. And it's not like they're trying to be hurtful. Like
Hmm.
they just can't see it. And I am not making excuses for them,
Yeah.
but like sometimes they really just can't see it. And it takes women like you or your colleagues or women who are listening now who are shaking their head like, yep, been there, to keep pushing and
Hmm.
using their voice, even though they feel like they're getting nowhere.
Yeah. And the thing too, like you said, not making excuses for anyone, but like a lot of these men, the world was built for them. And so they look around and go, what? There's nothing wrong with the way this is. Or, many of them do. And I think it's really important to draw attention to the ways that that's not true. That's not true that everything's okay. That's not true that everyone is getting a fair shake. And we collectively, and especially there's a lot of work for men to do to improve that for everybody. So I think it really is about drawing people's attention to it. And there's a lot of debate on how you best do that. If it's something where it's, not confrontational, but I think we've all been in situations where like the only approach feels
Mm-hmm.
confrontational because
Mm-hmm.
someone has been disrespectful or otherwise just really unkind. So it's always best to identify those moments where you can make a difference, where you can encourage a change. And I think a lot of that is through open dialogue and conversation. And when you're in a position where you feel like someone has been disrespectful, stick to the facts. This is something that you and I talked about. So
Mm-hmm.
stick to the facts. If you are having a conversation with someone about the way that they're approaching you, and I do think it's important to have those conversations, you go into it respectfully, you stick to the facts, meaning don't give them more of your energy and emotions than they deserve. So
Mm-hmm.
like you
Mm-hmm.
care about this, but ultimately like you're coming in to talk to them about it colleague to colleague. And lastly, you always have the ripcord to say this conversation is not productive. Let's put a pin in it until it can be. And then end the call or walk out of the room, whatever it might be. I think those are really helpful approaches to those conversations because if somebody's already been disrespectful, when you talk to them about it, they can go a couple of different ways. Ideally, you hope they go, "Oh, I didn't think of it that way. I'm so sorry." But they could go another way. They could double down on it, like you said, and say, "I don't
Yep.
see it that way." And that's unfortunate. And hopefully they can come around. But if they don't, and if they continue the bad behavior, then there's nothing saying that you have to sit there and take it. You can shut it down, you can get up, escalate it, or take whatever steps you feel you have to in order
Mhm.
to keep yourself in a safe and sane situation.
Yes, that is really, really good advice. There is really no segue from that important conversation to our rapid fire questions,
Ooh,
but we're still going to go ahead and do it.
okay. I'm ready.
Yeah, we can jump right into it, kind of shake off the last part of the conversation and think 12 questions, first thing that comes to your mind.
Ooh, okay.
No explanation needed, but if you give one, I won't be mad. What is your favorite sports moment?
Oh my gosh. Obviously, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl.
All right. What
100%.
what year was that?
2018.
What is
Mhm.
something people always get wrong about you?
I really don't know. I
Hmm.
think because I tend to live like, again, people can't see me, but I'm heavily tattooed. I parts of my head are shaved.
I love it.
Lots
I
of
love the
piercings.
hair.
I
Fantastic.
think along those lines is that a lot of times people have said to me, "You seem like such a nice girl" when they see my tattoos. So they have this idea that nice
Oh,
girls can't have tattoos, which is really interesting to me.
is that like an unconscious bias going on there or something like that?
Probably, right? Because I am nice. I identify as a nice person. Um,
You are very kind and nice.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I know other people with tattoos who are also kind and nice. Huh, that's
yeah.
interesting. What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
It's probably going to be something really bland. Nachos. Vegan nachos. I will say I'll qualify that. I'm a vegan, so vegan nachos, but I would
I'm
eat vegan nachos every day of the week.
Yeah, that sounds delightful and not bland at all. Are you a morning or a night person?
I have recently become a morning person, but I am kind of one of those people that can like pop up and just get going whenever. So, like,
Mm,
I tend to start my day with a lot of energy. I tend to end my day with a lot of energy.
okay.
So, I do need enough sleep though. So, now lately I am an early bird.
Do you track your sleep?
I don't. I have the setting on my iPhone that tells me when I should go to bed, and I probably
Mm.
go to bed 15 to 30 minutes after that tells me it's bedtime.
I can't believe that we fought for so long as children not to have a bedtime. And now all of it, like I shouldn't say all, but a lot of us listen to our smart devices that tell
Yeah,
us when the best time to go to sleep is to get the most of, oh my goodness.
yeah.
So funny. All right, favorite holiday.
My favorite holiday might be 4th of July because we go up to my in-laws every year up in Massachusetts, and we just have like a really lovely week of family and freezing cold pebbly beaches, and it's just really nice.
Yes, that does sound like fun. Dog or cat person?
Cats.
What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
There is this tea brand that I am obsessed with. It's called Ticino. And they have all these great like herbal teas. And I already have a stockpile of them. I think I have 4 different versions, each like a 25 tea bag box, just in case I want a different flavor that day, even though I drink the same flavor basically until the box is done. I feel the need to have it
Yeah.
always in reserve.
Yeah, you never know what your mood's gonna like make you want that day. I
Yeah.
think that's very smart. Not that you asked for my opinion on that. All right, what is your favorite app?
I just recently, with my running group, I got into this new app called Halo, Heylo.
Hmm.
And it is used sort of like a meetup. So you can arrange events on it, but there's also like different group chats. It might be kind of similar to Slack, actually. It's been years since I used Slack, but you can have like group chats, you can have one-on-one chats, you can have all these different channels. It's pretty snazzy. So that's probably my most recent one. I also really like Duolingo. So I've been using that for the
Mhm.
past couple years to learn a language.
Yeah, I'm thinking about downloading it the day before I go on my trip to Portugal. It was probably is not the best idea.
It'll be fresh. It'll be so fresh.
Yes, exactly. I can just try. Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram.
Instagram. I do not have a Twitter or a TikTok.
Neither do I. Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
Oh, my biggest inspiration is probably my great aunt Barbara. She's no longer with us, but she was a really incredible lady, acted as sort of the matriarch to my family. And she just had this really amazing life with her husband, with my uncle. They didn't have children of their own, but as I
Mhm.
mentioned, they sort of filled in for the grandparent
Right.
side. But coming from a really big family where everybody has children, it was an interesting view at a young age that didn't necessarily have to be the path that you took. So that is
Yeah.
not a path I'm taking. And I think I've always valued that like early peek at a what if you were different kind of moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. We could do a whole podcast on that
Oh,
topic.
yeah.
As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
I wanted to be a lot of different things. I thought about being an actress. I kind of wanted to be a writer. So a lot of like creative arts
Yeah.
things.
And the last one, finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is.
I think the future of women working in sports is hopeful. I think that we're all getting to a place where most people feel, if not comfortable, they don't feel like or I hope most people feel this way. Hopefully, they don't feel like it is putting their job in jeopardy to speak
Mhm.
up and to point something out and say, that's not quite right, or we could do this a little bit differently, or whatever it might be. So I'm very hopeful that moving forward, we will see more women, we'll see more inclusivity, and more intersectionality.
Yes. Well said. Megan, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
LinkedIn is probably the best way. So when we're talking about protecting our spaces, I will say that my Instagram is personal only. So it is for
All
my
right.
my personal stuff. But yeah, LinkedIn for sure. Drop me a line, connect with me. I love all that. I love meeting new people and building connections.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you, Jahaan.
So, what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.